Welcome to Guns and Whiskey, where I drink whiskey and talk about guns, or more recently, gun-related content. Today is an interesting one because I have Rittenhouse 100 proof bottled in bond straight rye whiskey. It's kind of a slip of the tongue there, that's funny. And I want to talk a little bit about the Kyle Rittenhouse trial that's going on for those of you who aren't following it. But first, before we talk about the heavy stuff in the gun content, this Rittenhouse Rye Whiskey, I was at my local liquor store and just looking for things on the barrel. Or the barrel on the shelves. I like to look at the labels and see where things are from, and something really stood out. First was the name Rittenhouse. I'm like, oh my gosh, I've never actually heard of Rittenhouse Rye. I'm sorry if it's a really popular brand. But the whole bottled in bond thing, and I looked at it, I was like, okay, that's interesting. Like, what does that mean? Did some research, called up my whiskey buddy who knows everything that there is to know about whiskey and bourbon, told me the story that the bottled in bond, there was actually an act back in the 1860s, I think it was, where whiskey and bourbon prior to that was kind of the Wild West, no pun intended, and people were mixing like sugar, turpentine, sometimes even tobacco spit in with whiskey to give it the dark color. And so what was happening is people didn't know the quality of the product that they were getting. So the Bottled in Bond Act was passed in the late 1800s, 1857 or 67, I forgot what it was. And these bottles that are bottled in bond, are bottled under government supervision. They have to all be 100 proof, so 50% alcohol. They have to be made by the same distillery in one distilling season, so it's not blended. And then I think there's a couple other things that have to make it bottled in bond, but it is done under government supervision. And if you break any of the rules, you're actually breaking the law. So bottled in bond was very popular in the late 1800s, and now it's getting more popular again. And I think it's just the trend of whiskeys and bourbons going higher in the proof, like above the 80s and 90s that you normally see on the shelf, to things going higher up into like the 100, 110 plus barrel proof stuff. So I think this is kind of like a nice medium area. But it's interesting because this bottle here cost me 27 bucks. And it is distilled and bottled by Heaven Hill Distillers, Louisville, Kentucky. They do a lot of stuff out of there. And, when I grabbed it, I didn't have high expectations, and I haven't tried it yet. So we'll see how this ends up being. All right, I'm having to smell it a lot because I'm not getting any like distinct notes coming up off it. Yeah, the more I smell it, the more I get really just nothing. And I hate to be that guy that says it smells like whiskey, but honestly, I'm not getting any interesting aromas coming up off it, but let's see. Okay, wow. That is a very, very long finish. I mean, we're talking, I'm 10, 12 seconds in, and I'm still getting a lot of flavor out of it. Just like the nose, the scent, there's not really anything discernible that I can get from it outside of whiskey. And I hate saying that, but if there's nothing there, there's nothing there. And the same thing in the finish. There's not really any interesting tasting notes, but it's just whiskey. And it has a really nice long finish, and it's super smooth. I mean, this 100 proof is kind of an interesting area for me to be in, so I like it. And maybe that's part of the whole bottled in bond thing, is you're not blending different barrels, different blends, all that stuff. So maybe, and if you know more about whiskey than I do, comment down below. Maybe that's part of the draw of bottled and bonded stuff, is that it is just whiskey. It's just whiskey, and it's just whiskey, and you're not going to get any weird flavors or scents and whatnot off of it. But man, for 27 bucks, that's extremely drinkable. It's kind of like a palate clearing whiskey, if that makes sense. Like, you're not going to have any weird tasting notes or aftertaste. So cool. So Rittenhouse bottled in bond 100 proof, 27 bucks, I would say yes. I mean, if you wanted to give somebody whiskey, this right here just straight up tastes like whiskey. Like you don't get anything else. It's straight rye whiskey. I don't know what else to say about it. So very good. Now moving on to the other Rittenhouse, we've got the Kyle variety. If you don't know the story, Google it, look it up. You've been living under a rock. Anyone in the gun community knows about Kyle Rittenhouse, and he was in Kenosha, Wisconsin last year. And you know, there's a lot of unrest there. He went there with an AR-15 style rifle. I think it was a PSA or it was some really budget gun. And he was there with that for self-defense, but he was filmed cleaning off graffiti. He was providing medical, help was his excuse for being there, his reasoning. And then he was chased down by rioters. There was some altercation that happened. He was trying to get away. One guy went after him in a parking lot, and Kyle shot and killed him. And then there's a whole crowd of people coming after him. You can watch the video. There's more video coming out. Another guy attacked him with the skateboard and tried to hit him over the head with his trucks. Kyle's on the ground with his budget gun, looks up at the guy, gets hit twice, boom, smokes the guy, shoots him right in the chest. And then a third guy's coming up, and you can see he's got a gun in his hand and is about to, execute Kyle full on, like while he's on the ground. And Kyle turns and hits the guy, shoots the guy in the arm. And the guy just drops the gun, and you've seen the aftermath. If you see the photos, it's insane to see what 5.56 or 2.23 can do out of a 16+ inch barrel at short range. And when I saw that, there's a couple of things that went through my mind. First, I was talking with a buddy of mine, Chris, who runs Consistent Shooting LLC, great instructor, and he said, we have all these, really nice Gucci guns, and then you see Kyle Rittenhouse smoke 3 dudes with his PSA budget build with the backup iron sights on it and like a strap, and it makes you rethink your life. So first off, it really goes to show that the gun itself isn't going to really, be the factor. It's going to be the training. But number 2, 16-inch barrels, man. I'm going to tell you, obviously 5.56 out of a 10.5-inch barrel at that distance is going to do stuff too. But man, it kind of made me rethink my life on all my Mark 18s for a second. I still love Mark 18s. But we're getting down to the trial now where the prosecutor, and the fact that he's even being prosecuted at the level he's being, pursued is really interesting to me, to see that in every single video that you see, he's running away. He's not running into a fight. He is trying to leave. He's trying to flee. He made no attempt to hide from the cops. In fact, after it happened, he even tried to flag cops down, and they drove right by him. They went and had to go find him at home. He looks like he made the attempt to turn himself in. So the fact that the Kenosha prosecutor is going so hard after him right now really makes you wonder what would happen if you were in an incident like this, a self-defense shooting. It really makes me start to wonder about that. But as of right now, we're in day 2 of the trial. I don't know where it'll be when you're watching this. But as we watch the trial unfold and we see how everything is going when it comes to a self-defense shooting, it makes me more and more just say, I would just rather not put myself into a situation like that, whether I'm justified or not, to have to go through that trial. So that's a lesson right there. But the other thing that really catches me and makes me think is when you look at the photos that people use. I'll post some of these up here. But when you look at the different news outlets and how they portray Rittenhouse, like Yahoo News, it talks about Kyle Rittenhouse's trial opens with his lawyer repeating the N-word twice in court, and the face that they've got is Rittenhouse making some smug face. And then you go down, or CNN, a friend who brought gun for Kyle Rittenhouse says the teen was freaking out. Once again, they've got a photo of him smirking. Slate, the real danger of Kyle Rittenhouse trial, they've got him smirking. And then you go to Fox News, Kyle Rittenhouse portrayed as a victim and instigator in dueling opening statements. So he's looking a little more scared on Fox News. The whole thing is just very interesting to see how the different news organizations portray him. But here's the thing that I find the most interesting is the media, but also how the judge portrayed the media. So the judge even admits that the media in the Rittenhouse trial has been completely either biased or just sloppy. Here is the statement from the judge himself. I've read things about this case that were perfectly stated what had happened in this court. And then there were things that I think, was I in the courtroom when that happened? I'm not bashing anybody, but I'm going to talk to you about what you need to do, what you need to be thinking about if you're picked to hear this case. So this was when they did the jury selection. How much reliance you can put on things that may just be sloppy, which is a vast amount of it. Some of that is deliberately biased that's out there, and sometimes that comes from respectable media outlets. So the bottom line is we've got this Rittenhouse trial. From everything I've seen, from all the videos that I've seen, it looks like self-defense. Was it a wise choice to be in the middle of riots? No. It was his choice though, and he's more than welcome to make that. But the actual circumstances around the shooting appeared to be self-defense. I can't see anything different about it, but the media, most media outlets are trying to portray him in a negative light, and you'll see it just in the headlines, and you'll see it in the photos that they use. Even the judge is saying that. So I just wonder, is he even able to get a fair trial? Okay? And if you're ever in a situation like that where you have to, use your gun in self-defense, the thing that really worries me about the whole Rittenhouse trial is this going to influence people to think twice before they use a firearm to save their life or somebody else's when things come down to this? When it comes down to, we don't want to have to, hurt somebody or potentially kill them, but if it's to save your life or somebody else's, is this going to stop people from acting? Is this going to make people think twice about it? Is the media's portrayal of Kyle Rittenhouse and of people that are acting in self-defense? And from all appearances, he was not doing anything wrong earlier that day. There's the debate about whether buying the rifle or the rifle being bought for him, going across state lines, was that legal, was that illegal? I believe in the state that he was coming from, you can have a long gun at 17 years old. So they may or may not have thrown that charge out, but what it really comes down to is, can we rely on the media, and can we rely on other people and prosecutors to see self-defense for what it really is? And I don't think so. So, I'm rooting for the truth to come out and for justice to be served in the Rittenhouse trial. And I think the next couple of weeks, or however long the trial takes, are really going to be a good indicator of where our country and where people stand when it comes to, self-defense. Now, I'm also going to put this out here. Kyle and the 3 dudes he shot were all the same race. So if that weren't the case, it would be completely different, all right? And as far as I'm concerned, I hate bringing that into it, but that's just the world we live in. That is the only way he is getting a fair trial right now, is the fact that he only shot white guys and he's a white guy. So let's just hope that the right thing happens. And I'm just going to drink some more of this amazing bottled in bond Rittenhouse. Cheers.